Valerie and Bob. And there it is, training, that's the one.
Did I download that? I did.
Great. All right, we've got the data loaded up. So let's go to the sheet here, to sheet 1. Start taking a look at it. So there should be on Colab or somewhere, you should have data, you should have had these assignment sheets. All that stuff what I was told was put on Colab, and so you should have access. If you don't, then let's figure it out with Valerie. All right, let's try to take a look at some of these visualizations here and try to get a sense. Let's start with maybe a simpler one, auctions. So Ryan, on the left side, you're going to see all your variables. They're broken up into 2 sections. Has anybody here worked with Tableau in the past? All right. Will, do you know what the 2 sections correspond to?
The 2 sections.
There's kind of all the way up here. There's listed by ABCs and things, and down here there's a green pound sign. It's a line that splits them in 2.
Is it based on its data type?
It is based on its data type.
Is it it's like whether it's quantitative or not?
Yeah. So the ones on top are going to be your categorical variables, generally speaking. They're going to correspond to categories of some sort. And the ones on the bottom are going to correspond to the kind of numerical values. So can you drag auction to columns, Ryan? The auction column is at the top of your screen.
What?
That's cool.
And then could drag is bad buy to rows. There we go.
Well, what's the sum?
Well, that's a good question.
So we're looking at a sheet, and what'd you drag to columns? Auction.
Oh, so is that by zeros or ones, and then it just summed it?
That's exactly right. So what is this plot telling us?
The number of bad buys per auction.
Number of bad buys that we purchased from each auction, right? Is this a useful plot?
Yeah, not really.
Not really.
What's that?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, kind of, but it's not compared to anything. One of those auctions could just be much bigger than the others.
Okay, so that's the problem, right? Maybe we bought a whole lot more cars from Mannheim than we bought from the others. So this is summing, so everything here is bad buy is 0 or 1, and we're summing it all up. What could we do instead of summing that get a better sense for the goodness or badness of an auction? Percentage. What would be an easy way to take a percentage here?
Just the auction over the total number of cars purchased.
Okay, so we could actually compute the percentage. Anybody have a simpler way than that?
This is driving me crazy. I don't know why it's not working.
Well, it turns out if you have a 0-1 variable and you take an average, that's exactly equal to a percentage, right? The average of a 0-1 variable is exactly a percentage. So, Ryan, can you go up to where you see that green sum is bad buy and hover over it for a second? There's a little drop down on the right. Click that, and you'll go down to you see measure sum, and then you go to average. And so, what does this tell us, now that we've seen how the plot changes, what does this tell us about the size of the Mannheim auction?
It's not what it looked like in the first one.
So it's smaller than what it looked like in the first one, so what does that indicate?
Percentage is less.
It was a bigger auction.
It's a bigger auction, yeah. And so we bought more cars from Mannheim, right? And the proposal was that some auction types would increase whether or not it was a bad buy. Is that supported by this or not supported?
Is the difference between 15 and 12 considered big?
I don't know.
So what does the red mean? I don't remember what that said. It said red equals bad buy. What does that mean?
The hypothesis was that red cars might be worse buys because this idea that people drive, people buy red cars, drive fast, and just run them harder. That's a hypothesis. We don't know if it's true or not. Let's actually just take a step back and just figure out how many cars in our sample are actually bad buys. That'll be a helpful number to have. click on this, yeah, there you go, that'll create a new sheet. And then drag is bad buy to rows, just by itself. There are 5,000 bad buys, but again, this doesn't tell us how many, or what percentage of the bad buys, of the cars are bad buys. So we can do that same sum to average. So can you kind of go up to that drop-down menu and go to average? And so now we see that the number of bad buys, if you hover over it, it'll actually give you the exact value there. It's 12.3% of our cars are bad buys. So 15 is, more, but the question is like, did we buy enough? So let's go back to this first sheet here. One thing that we don't really know is that, like, okay, well, depending on how many cars we bought from each of these auctions will tell us whether or not we think something is statistically significant, right? We could imagine coming up with a statistical test to this is an average of the bad buy variable for each of these auctions. We've seen a bunch of cars from these auctions. We could come up with some kind of confidence interval around that average and try to make some kind of concrete statement. We're not going to go all the way there, but it will be helpful to get a sense for, like, how much did we buy at this auction versus another. And so, Ryan, could you drag this count, this training.csv count at the bottom, to color, which is on the left side there. It's, there you go, and drop it right on top of that color.
So, question for you.
Yeah.
I don't have all the same things on the left side as he does, even though I'm in the training data set.
Training.csv count.
So like, I don't have training I don't have count in there for some reason for that.
Did you scroll down?
Yep, all the way down. That's not showing up.
So it should always be there.
I've got a count of migrated data.
This is I'm guessing. Oh, you're looking at Mike Russell's workball.
What did you do on
And
sheet
you
2?
opened up somebody else's workbook where they have
What did you
processed,
do on
kinda
sheet 2?
changed the data format a little bit already. Just open up a new workbook and that will give you.
And in parentheses, and it'll pop up and tell you.
And that's it?
Yeah, it's not showing up on mine.
Like that?
Okay.
So I want to make sure you guys didn't open up that Mike Russell's workbook. If you open, so this was what Dennis was saying, was that you also got a Tableau workbook.
Yes.
That was an example of some visualizations. That workbook is something that I asked you guys to look at as a forward example visualization. What we're doing now is just opening up Tableau by itself and then selecting the training.csv file. Okay, so what is this plot telling us?
The average of bad buys per the auction.
We are seeing that, but we've just added something to this color. Now we've changed colors for here. What's the additional source of information?
There are more records in Mannheim
Yep.
than other, followed by Edeza.
Yeah, so Edeza, if we hover over Edeza, that light blue bar there, we see that we have, we bought 14,439 cars from them. Whereas with Mannheim, we can look over and see we bought 41,000 cars from Mannheim. So we start to get a sense that we have bought less cars from Edeza, which means that our estimation of the bad buy percentage is going to be lower.